More people who attended that Gridiron dinner last week now testing positive for the virus as case rates are ticking up across the nation. Chief White House correspondent Cecilia Vega has the latest. Good morning, Cecilia.
Hey, Michael, good morning to you. Yeah, that elite dinner, it's attended by a who's who of Washington politicians and journalists. It turns out it's looking like a major super spreader event here in town. At least 72 positive cases so far, potentially linked to that dinner. We're now talking about New York City Mayor Eric Adams. We're talking about members of the president's cabinet, the Ag Secretary, the Commerce Secretary, even the Attorney General. But look at this. It's not just that dinner. At least 23 lawmakers and administration officials testing positive just in the last week alone. So far, the good news, it seems most, if not all, are experiencing mild symptoms, being vaccinated. But some have had close proximity with the president, including, you can see there, Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The White House says they are taking precautions to keep President Biden safe, including regular testing. He was last tested on Friday. But, Michael, they're now acknowledging that it is a possibility that President Biden could get infected.
Thank you, Cecilia. We're joined now by the new White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator, Dr. Ashish Jha. Dr. Jha, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Michael. Thanks for having me here.
And we know there are around 70 cases linked to that Washington Gridiron dinner, which looked increasingly like a super spreader event. But everyone who attended, they had to be vaccinated. Is that not enough anymore?
Yeah, so Michael, you know, what it reminds us is the pandemic isn't over, right? We're still going to see cases of this virus spreading, and we have to continue to be vigilant. We have to continue to be careful. But as long as people are vaccinated and boosted, we now have a lot of treatments available. Put that together, and the good news is no one out of that so far has gotten particularly sick, and that's what we got to be tracking, making sure that when there are outbreaks that we can take care of people and make sure that no one ends up in the hospital or worse.
And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who spent time with President Biden and Vice President Harris last week, she tested positive on Thursday. And later that day, the vice president presided over the Senate without a mask. And then we saw a maskless Biden meet with Judge Jackson. Was that risky? And what are the latest CDC guidance on when you need to wear a mask?
Yeah, so there are very strict protocols here at the White House and elsewhere, obviously, for senior officials, including anybody who's had a known exposure as defined by the CDC following CDC guidelines. So I think that is clearly being followed. And I think that's important, right? I think it's important for us to continue to be vigilant, including if you've had an official exposure, to follow the response that the CDC has required.
And we know the Omicron variant, BA2, that's led to a rise in cases in Europe. And it is the dominant variant here in the U.S. as well. We've typically followed Europe by a few weeks, and now infections here are on the rise in 21 states. So how concerned are you, and what do vaccinated people need to know about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Couple of things. And first of all, as you said, we have tended to follow Europe by a few weeks. We are seeing cases rise. We're going to see cases rise and fall. I mean, that's part of the thing. What we know is for BA2, the vaccines are working really well, particularly if you're boosted. So if you're boosted, there are still some breakthroughs, but people are going to do very well. So that's the number one thing people need to be doing, is making sure they're vaccinated and boosted.
And speaking of being boosted, the CDC authorized a second booster for older people, but nearly a third of people over 65 haven't had their first booster. You're now the new White House coronavirus czar. So what are you going to do to make sure that those that are most vulnerable get boosted?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is absolutely essential that every adult who's more than 5 months out get that booster. I mean, that I think is just critical. And as you pointed out to Michael, it's particularly important for older Americans, people who are at higher risk. So I think we need to look carefully at what's holding that back. We need to redouble our efforts. That's how we're going to save lives. That's how we're going to prevent hospitalizations and deaths, is making sure that older, more vulnerable people absolutely get their booster.
We definitely want to save lives. Dr. Jha, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and congratulations on your new job.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.